So my name is Peter Vranes. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Nutromics.
My name is Hitesh. I'm the COO and co-founder of Nutromics.
So Hitesh and I started the company back in 2017, and we started with a vision of solving the preventable health crisis with continuous diagnostic information. So that was our vision, but we needed a technology to do that. And so we spent about how many years?
2.5 years looking for the right technology to help us solve that problem.
Yeah.
When I met Peter, he was working with a German company that was looking at one approach, optical, but it wasn't the right technology for us. And just the reason why we started with this problem is because today it's a sick care system, not a healthcare system. It's a very reactive, it's not proactive. And that's where we had a shared passion and a shared vision on how do we change that system and actually make it more proactive so you can take care of your own health and make sure that you stay healthy for longer. That evolved over time as we learned about the problems in the space and where we're focused today.
Yeah. So it wasn't until about 2020 that we actually came across the technology that we have today, and that's DNA-based sensing. It's a platform technology. It can monitor any drug or diagnostic target continuously and in real time. But it took us a while to find that. And so we had the vision, but we needed the technology. We secured that in 2020. And then from there, we built a team, built a company to build that into a medical device that we have here today. Yeah, so we started in 2017, where we've been in the clinic for a couple of years. We've done multiple clinical studies already. And we're just about to, in a matter of a few weeks, couple of weeks, go into the ICU, which is our intended use population. And so that's a big value inflection for the company. It's a big proof point to say it's worked in all these different populations. And now we're going to the most sick population there is, which is the ICU. And we're going to demonstrate that it works there.
Yeah, so we're starting with 5 hospital sites and just continuing the ICU studies and the development and looking to launch in the US in 2028.
Yeah, so CGMs are the nearest comparator to what we do. That's continuous glucose monitors. They've been in the market for over 20 years, revolutionized the treatment of type 1 diabetes and now moving into type 2 and into the community setting actually. They're about $10 billion per year revenue market, very, very successful. After 20 odd years, it's still one sensor monitoring glucose on one patch, albeit very, very successfully. We represent the evolution of that technology because we overcome some of the limitations. So number one limitation is that the universe of things that technology can monitor is quite limited. So really commercially, there's only one, which is glucose, which is why 20 years later, we still only have glucose. The second limitation is even if you could do other sensors, you get confounding when you put them on the same patch. And so that's another reason why we only have one sensor on one patch, because the inability to multiplex. So we overcome both those limitations. So we can, in theory, do really any diagnostic target and drug. So we've got a massive universe of targets available to us. And secondly, we can multiplex. We've already got data on putting multiple sensors on the one device. So we don't have both those limitations. So that's exciting because we can really leverage that. And we have one of our partners, Dexcom, one of the leaders in CGM, one of our major investors. So that's a good form of validation on how they see us. So I think that's an exciting development because the world moving forward will go beyond just the single monitoring of one thing. When we take blood draws, we do panels typically. And the same for continuous monitoring. It shouldn't be any different. And we can glean major insights when we can do that. So for example, vancomycin, pairing vancomycin with creatinine, because vancomycin is cleared through the kidney, so you always want to measure kidney function, makes a whole lot of sense. And we have the ability to do that, to pair both those up on the one device. And then we can add other things, other drug targets on the same device. So from a company perspective, we also leverage an investment in building this patch. We built it once and then we leverage it over and over again with just adding another microneedle and a sensor to the same patch. So that means we've got almost like software-like speed of deployment. We can deploy this very efficiently, economically, and very quickly.
The reason why it's so powerful, in comparison to the CGMs, right? So the enzymatic approaches are measuring a reaction. We're using DNA to actually build sensors that are highly specific to the target of interest. That's what makes it so powerful, so scalable. We change the sequence, we change the sensor, but the rest of the platform stays exactly the same.
Well, today there are millions of people that are walking around that will be severely impacted because this technology doesn't exist. And what I mean by that is that people who go into hospital and get dosed with a drug, many of them die because of the drug. The drugs are often quite toxic and need to be dosed in narrow therapeutic ranges, but very, very difficult to dose. And there are dozens of these drugs. They're indicated for what's called therapeutic drug monitoring. And our techniques today are horrendous, is the best way to describe it. And so on that notion that you go in a hospital with, say, a bacterial infection and the drug kills you is bizarre and shouldn't exist today, but it does. So we're driven by that. These people are us, they're our families, they're the people that we know. And we have legitimately a technology that can save lives and literally millions of lives. That's what drives us, Hitesh and I, but also the whole company is driven by that pull to actually have a major impact in the world. And we feel privileged to do what we do. We're a mission-driven company, and that's what we're trying to do. And it's not just drugs. It's we talked about biomarkers earlier, but identifying heart attacks, diagnosing heart attacks earlier, identifying renal problems like acute kidney injury earlier. When Hitesh talked about a reactive healthcare system, we don't do that well today. So continuously monitoring in some of the the most acute settings like the ICU, where the need is greatest, and that's where we're going to start, we can have a huge impact in that space. So that's why we're so passionate about what we do. And this technology, we've already been in the clinic for 2 years. We know it works. We know, we're just building this to launch now. And we're not far off, so we're incredibly excited about that prospect.
Just to add to that, so where we decided to start, as Peter said, is in the hospital setting, in the most acute setting. So we're starting with a sensor for a drug called vancomycin. So if you have bacterial infections, sepsis, MRSA, you're in the ICU setting and you're going to be dosed with this drug or other drugs like this. It has a very narrow therapeutic window. So 6 million Americans are getting dosed with this drug on an annual basis. Up to 43% end up with toxicity and complications because of the drug, because it can't be properly managed and monitored on a regular basis. And then out of that, up to 33% can actually die from the complications and the toxicity associated with the drug. So today what happens is they do the blood draw, they're taking that to the lab, they're getting that analyzed, they're getting the data from that lab and analysis 12 hours later, right, to make the next dosing decision. So it's a very ineffective workflow. It's a lot of complications that are involved, especially for a fast-moving condition and a drug that can be highly toxic.
Yeah, so the device that I have in my hand has small microneedles, and on the tips of those microneedles, we put our DNA-based sensor. So that's that platform sensing technology that we've been talking about. And what it does is when you apply it to, say, the back of the arm, or you can apply it anywhere in the body, it gives us access to this fluid just under the skin called interstitial fluid, or ISF. And it's the same fluid used by continuous glucose monitors. So if you've ever seen a diabetic wearing a patch, they're monitoring in this same compartment. And this compartment is rich with biomarkers. So often there's strong correlations between blood and this particular compartment, ISF. So monitoring in that compartment, we can monitor things like drugs and biomarkers that we spoke about. And then the data goes through a Bluetooth gateway out into the cloud and then back onto either pre-existing screens in the hospital or onto the hub that we've created. So in a very simplistic way, that's how it's all put together. One thing that's quite unique about the technology is that we can monitor multiple molecules on the one patch. So CGMs, or continuous glucose monitors, after 20 years are still doing one thing. They do glucose. They do it really well, but it's still one thing, one molecule that they monitor. So what we want to usher in is a new era where we can monitor, go well beyond glucose to all these different targets that no one can measure today, but also do it on one patch. So we could have 5, 6, 7 different targets monitored. Each one of those is a little microneedle on the one patch. And that's something no one can do today.
ICU setting, as we mentioned, 6 million people get dosed with vancomycin. That's our first product. But when you talk about, for example, heart failure that Peter mentioned, right, or suspected heart attacks, 10 million Americans are showing up in the emergency care setting with a suspected heart attack. 2 million are actually having a heart attack, but it takes a long time to actually diagnose them, up to 6 hours. So there's huge potential applications even beyond vancomycin that we're looking at that go into renal care with people with chronic kidney disease, with cardiac care, with diabetes in the future as well. So the potential to have this roll out across healthcare is enormous.
Yeah, sure. So if you were to go into hospital today and get a drug that's indicated for therapeutic drug monitoring, there are dozens of those. And Hitesh mentioned one, vancomycin. Basically what they would do is take a blood draw, they would send that to the lab, they would process that, it'd come back an hour or more later, and then the clinician would get that and that would be where the patient was, their concentrations when they took the blood draw, and they would use that to guide their next infusion of the drug. And as Hitesh mentioned, that's 12 to 13 hours later. So the problem is you get stale data, you get a single data point, and it's always in the rearview mirror. That's how it's done today. And the outcomes are poor. So, we get lots of people that get toxic doses because it's really hard to dose the drug, or they don't get a therapeutic dose, which means the life-threatening bacterial infection that they're trying to treat isn't treated because the dose is too low. So you just get this huge variability in individuals, this concentration, and the outcomes are just disastrous. So that's where we think, or we know that continuously monitoring that concentration in the patient. So, doctor walks up to a patient and in any moment they will know exactly what their concentration is in real time. That's the difference. And so that ability, that it's like taking the blindfold off for a clinician. So their ability to keep them in this therapeutic zone where it's killing the bacteria and out of the toxic zone is greatly enhanced because they've got the information that they desperately need. And when we speak to clinicians all around the world and we say, if we could develop a device, a wearable device that can monitor any target, what would you want? The number one thing they all come back with typically is we dose vancomycin every day. It's the number one dosed IV antibiotic. We're going blind. There's all these problems. It's super expensive. It's super difficult to dose just from a workflow perspective. If you can solve that, that's our number one problem. And so that's why we're a platform tech. We can do lots of things, but all roads lead through the first one. And that's why we're starting with this first problem. It's a huge problem. There's a pull in the market to solve it, and we can solve it. So that's why we're starting there.
Even when you think about drug dosing alone, the way they typically manage the drug dosing is based on height and weight. So going beyond just monitoring, this technology actually enables, just like CGMs did for diabetics with the insulin pump, this would actually enable personalizing dosing for individuals as well. Everyone's going to clear the drug differently. That's what has a lot of the issues with complications and the toxicity.
I think the big one is the pipeline. That's the one that we get super excited about. So we have a platform. We know the platform works. We know we can measure vancomycin. And the really exciting part for us is all those future applications. So the ability to monitor, say, troponin, which is what you monitor for heart attack diagnosis. We all know someone who's who's suffered from a heart attack. It's so common. To be able to reduce that time down substantially, it's a complete game changer. That's super exciting. Creatinine, that's the gold standard marker for kidney function. The applications that we can have a huge impact there. So, electrolytes is another one, sodium, potassium, with heart failure. These have been like the holy grail for biosensing forever. And to finally now start to really make inroads and just bring this from a dream to a reality. We have a lot of KOLs, a lot of key opinion leaders, clinicians that are exceptionally excited about the prospects that we're delivering and want to be part of it. So we're fortunate that we get to work with, in the biosensing and different clinicians as well, the absolute world best here, because everyone can see where this is heading and they want to be part of it and help guide it. And we're super collaborative. I think we've always been that way from day one. We're not in the medtech. We didn't come from the medtech world. We came from outside the medtech world. And so that's a pro and a con. It's good because we don't have any preconceived notions of what's possible. So we go into it, first principles, we say, why can't it work? Or how do we make it work? I think that was a big secret to where we got. Yeah. But then on the flip side, we need to go up the curve in knowledge really, really fast. And we do that through just working with the world's best. So we've been really fortunate to have that. We have a biosensor advisory board of literally the world's best in this space, and some of the world's best clinicians, and we're building that out now even further. But yeah, it's just really exciting. I think taking the idea of what it could be and making it real is an entrepreneur's dream. That's why we all do what we do, to take the dream and make it reality. So in the early days, it was a dream, but now we're getting data. Data's makes it real. And that's, I think, what's super exciting.
Yeah, I think we'll be the happiest when we have it on the patients for the first time. Yeah, and it helps actually save their lives.
Yeah. That's ultimately that's our moment. That's what we're driving to. Is we're in a hospital and patient gets amazing outcome that they wouldn't otherwise have got. That's what we're working really hard towards that goal. And then beyond that, you just then scale. We're going to scale it. Yeah, well, I suppose one big one, we just closed the lead on a current round. So that's exciting. That was just last week. So we're actually announcing it first here at LSI. So that's always a nice milestone. That's a $20 million round. I think the previous milestones, the clinical studies were big ones.
We moved very quickly through the first in-human clinical studies, and we've been gradually building that capability. What's really exciting now is we've got the capability to develop multiple sensors and put them on the same platform, and they work, right? So that's been really exciting. For us, vancomycin, as Peter said, that's the launch, and all roads lead through that, but that's only the beginning. It's the future pipeline and the future opportunities. The other thing we're really excited about is this doesn't just help clinicians save lives. This can also help pharma companies develop their products, their drugs faster and safer. The sort of data that we're able to generate on PK/PD modeling for drugs is phenomenal, right? And when we talk to pharma companies, they get particularly excited about that. Imagine not having to spend 6.5 years in drug trial development alone, being able to do it in a much, much shorter time frame. Imagine being able to do that much safely for patients and know exactly what the personalized dosing is going to be when you launch your product. So that's an area that we're pretty excited about as well.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, another milestone that we're moving towards is our B round. So that's going to be later on this year, early next year. That's a $45 million round. And so we're taking a number of investors on the journey that are waiting for the ICU data. And then post that, we're going to open up that B round. So that's a big milestone for the company. And I think we're well placed for that, because we're getting very good data and it's all heading in the right direction. We just need to continue to execute really well to put ourselves in a good place to close that round.